Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to the Spirit Tarot and Healing Arts YouTube channel. If you are new, welcome back if you are a returning viewer. I'm Rin, and I'm having a hard time even getting through the intro to this video because I am so hot right now. I am so just... So this video is going to be a bit of a rant, a bit of a hot take about bad tarot business advice. Now, how this came about is sort of a long, winding story. Basically, the short version is I had started following this business coach that was specific to the types of work that I do. However, after consuming her free content and then getting some of her paid content, which promised to do certain things for my business, it was after that point when I got the paid content, I was like, are you kidding me? It was so out of date, it wasn't even usable. I was so upset. And then after that, it started to come out that this person does not have the level of experience that they tout. They do offer business advice specifically for Etsy, and it turns out that they really have not made a lot of sales on Etsy, and they actually stopped selling readings on Etsy years ago. So really, in my opinion, don't come for me, allegedly, this person vastly misrepresents their experience, their expertise, and why you should pay them for tarot business advice. That said, there is a group associated with this person, and even though I would no longer follow this specific person's business advice, I do remain in the group, not for the person who runs the group and their associates. I stayed for the students in the group because I have enjoyed some of the discussions that have gone on within the group. So I didn't unjoin because of that. Now, for a while, I was answering questions, but I realized that I was answering questions for free, and I was doing the work of the person who is supposed to be the business coach for free. And after learning what I did, I was like, oh, as much as I like helping other people, there's a market for this information. I actually have a great deal more experience than the person who is doing this. And so, honestly, certain questions I don't mind answering for free. But the more nuanced, the more involved questions, I have started to actually charge to help people with their Etsy tarot businesses. Because clearly there's a market for it, and I really do have a lot of experience and expertise to offer in that area. So, just cheap plug for myself, I do have currently a one question about your tarot Etsy business available on my Etsy shop. You get a written response within 48 hours according to business hours, and I am going to start offering one-on-one Etsy tarot business mentoring, but I have to come up with some printables first, and I don't quite have them where I want them because there has to be a digital product for the buyer to download in order for me to be able to offer one-on-one mentorships through Etsy. Now, you can hit me up from my website and we can talk logistics, and you could book a session like that with me through my website. But for Etsy, I've got a little work to do so that I make sure that I cross my T's and dot my I's so that I'm good as far as Etsy's terms of service go. So that's a little side note. But they were having a online live video summit for psychic businesses. And it's going on this whole week. And for the most part, no, nothing that I'm interested in, nothing that applies to me specifically, but that's perfectly fine. However, I did see this one talk, and I decided that I would go check it out. And the title of the talk is Why Your Psychic Skill Set Alone Isn't Enough for Business Success and What You Need to Learn. Now, I interpreted that to mean that like marketing or other business skill sets would be discussed because we're looking at business success, and I figured we were going to talk about business skill sets. I was wrong. And that could be on me. I asked someone else what they thought that title meant, and they thought that it meant the same thing I did, but it did not. This person was talking about adding pastoral skills and psychology skills and different alternative healing modalities into your spiritual work, both tarot and whatever other practices that you do. Which is not a horrible idea, but obviously not a talk geared for me because I already have that stuff. I have a degree in psychology. I have a work history in psychology. So the stuff that he was going over, I've already been there, done all of that. I already add all of those skill sets and more into my tarot readings. But still, I tried to stay for the talk. I tried to have an open mind because you never know what nugget of information you might get out of something that can really help you. So even though it wasn't about what I thought it was going to be about, I still stayed in the talk because I was like, you never know what you might learn. There might be something that gets discussed in this that might open a door for me. I might have an aha moment. I might be able to get a little piece of information that helps me to refine something so that I can improve my business. I'm always looking to learn, and like I said earlier, just because somebody hasn't done something as long as you, or they're younger than you, or whatever, looking at other people's perspectives can be helpful. And so I try to keep an open mind, and that's what I did for this talk. However, I cannot, like, this is a bonus video for the week. I am so heated. This is, so heated. Like, I had to call somebody and vent because I was like, oh my goodness gracious me, oh my, people are gonna get fines or get arrested, and I'm not even joking. Before I get to the really, like, I can't put enough reallys here, bad tarot business advice that this guy was giving out, let me say that because I have learned my lesson, I did try to look up this person before going to the talk. Now, the way that this summit is set up, none of the social links or anything like that are available for the speakers before the talks. I didn't even have his name right because the font that the person hosting this used for the names for the participants, it's really hard to read, and so I thought that the one letter was a completely different letter. But even now, having his real name, he has almost no online presence. There's nothing to vouch for his credibility. There's no body of work for me to look at. There's no website where I can see products and services offered and their price. There is nothing. And so in the talk, this guy says that he's been doing this stuff for a little over 10 years. I don't know how we would know that or how he would show us that because there's nothing there. I looked at his YouTube. There's 2 videos. They really don't have anything to do with anything. Only 6 followers on YouTube. Okay, fine. Maybe YouTube isn't his thing. But I couldn't find really any bigger following somewhere else. And when you go to his website, like I said, it'll say, oh, click here for this. And it just brings up a calendar for you to go ahead and book a thing. But it doesn't tell you what the service actually is or how much the service actually costs. And I understand that not everybody has a big social media presence. I don't have a big social media presence. Now, I've talked about the fact that a big factor in why I don't have a huge social media presence is because I am chronically ill and I just don't have the spoons to be able to work with clients and do the amount of social media posting I would need to do. So I try to walk that fine line where I do here on YouTube have a presence, and I know it's not as big as a lot of the other tarot readers, but I do the best I can with my physical limitations. So the fact that I couldn't find anything of relevance for this person, I understand that there can be reasons why someone might not have a huge social media presence. So I get there can be reasons, but by and large, if you're doing tarot online or any other sort of spiritual services, you have an online presence, at least on one platform, if not multiple platforms. And I could not find a substantial online presence or body of work from this person. So I'm not sure where or how this person is working as a spiritual provider. I don't know exactly what he does because he didn't really necessarily get into a lot of that in the talk. So for me here, there's just, if not red flags, there's at least caution flags, right? Like, But still, I went to logged into the talk and was keeping an open mind. But that open mind went out the window rather quickly, because here is the advice that this man was giving. He was telling people to call themselves tarot counselors or spiritual counselors, and that is perfectly okay in the United States and actually gives you legal protections. Pause for dramatic effect, and if my eyes roll back into my head any farther, I will be looking out the back of my skull. No, you cannot call yourself a counselor unless you meet certain requirements. In the United States, those requirements vary by state. But here's the general overarching theme. Unless you have a master's degree and are overseen by a PhD or an MD, or you have an MD or a PhD where you are a licensed doctor of psychiatry or psychology, you cannot legally call yourself a counselor in the United States. Now, there are variances by state. I live in the state of Washington. I have a bachelor's level degree in psychology. Here in the state of Washington, I could, if I chose to, go through the process of being able to be a counselor in the state of Washington. But here are the requirements for that. I can be a counselor with a bachelor's level degree, which is uncommon. Most states require a minimum of a master's level. But with my bachelor's in the state of Washington, if I take and pass the counselor licensing test and am then overseen in my business by an MD or a PhD in either psychiatry or psychology, then and only then can I call myself a counselor in this state. Now, I think that what this man was trying to get at is that there is a loophole in many states that if you are an ordained clergy person, to try to use gender neutral wording, if you're ordained, then you can call yourself a pastoral or spiritual counselor legally. However, there are caveats with that as well. So what this gentleman told those of us in the talk was that if you just claim that you are a spiritual counselor in the United States, then you are protected by the First Amendment. And that is simply not true in the United States. In order to not meet the psychology requirements, to be the mental health field requirements, to be labeled as a counselor, if you want to do just a religious or spiritual counseling, you have to be ordained. But you can't be ordained by just anyone. You have to be ordained by a religious organization that is a nonprofit, recognized religious organization within the state that you are operating in. So, I am ordained through the Universal Life Church. I do not believe that all 50 states recognize the Universal Life Church. I'm not sure. It kind of goes in and out. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania has very strict requirements as to what constitutes a recognized church in the state of Pennsylvania. Among those requirements is a congregation requirement. So I think it was around 2007, I'm going off the top of my head because this is just a rant, but in that window of time, the 2000s, Pennsylvania decided they had been accepting ordinations through the Universal Life Church. They decided to overturn that, which then overturned anything that an officiant from the Universal Life Church had done. It was a huge problem in the state of Pennsylvania. Ultimately, it was ruled that the ULC did meet the congregation requirement because there is a brick and mortar ULC church in Philadelphia, and the state finally decided, as it went through the courts, that did meet the state's requirements for a congregation in order for a church to be recognized by the state of Pennsylvania. But here's the thing that most people don't realize. Yes, the First Amendment gives us the freedom of religion. However, you only have freedom of religion if the government recognizes your religious institution. So, unless you are ordained by a religious institution that your state of residence or your state that you are practicing in recognizes as a legitimate religious institution, you cannot call yourself a spiritual counselor. You have to be ordained. It has to be on paper. There has to be something official saying that you are ordained by that church, and that church has to meet your state's requirements in order for that ordination to be valid and for you to be able to use the protection of claiming that you are a spiritual counselor because you are ordained as clergy. You cannot simply say, oh, my religion is XYZ and I am a clergy of that religion and therefore I am a spiritual counselor. It does not work that way, and that's what this person was trying to say, that as long as you codify your spiritual beliefs and attach your practices to your spiritual beliefs, that then you are just automatically protected under the First Amendment to call yourself a spiritual counselor, and it is simply not the case. In fact, I have a degree in psychology, as I've already mentioned, and I'm ordained, but I still, even though I am more qualified than most people you will find using the term spiritual counselor, I do not use the term spiritual counselor in my business, because even though technically I am covered, legally speaking, if someone decided to take issue with something I said or just didn't like me or what have you, and they want to have it investigated, I at the very least have the hassle, the stress, and everything else that goes along with being investigated to figure out if I can legally use the term spiritual counselor or not. And if it winds up before the wrong judge who doesn't like my alternative spiritual practices, who doesn't like tarot, even though legally I'm technically supposed to be able to use that terminology, I choose not to risk it because I know the risk is still there, even though legally speaking, I should be allowed to use that term. I just don't feel it's worth the potential risk. And if you are not ordained and you are not someone who can work as a mental health counselor in your state, then you should not be using the word counselor ever. You are not just magically protected by the First Amendment. It does not work that way. So I just want you guys to know this. I know that there are people who use the term counselor, either tarot counselor or spiritual counselor, that should not be using that term. They'll get away with it, I'm sure, for a while until they don't. In some places, it's a fine for misusing the word counselor or mislabeling your stuff as counseling. in other places, it is punishable by jail time. So this is really, really bad tarot business advice. And, if you meet the legal requirements to call yourself a counselor in the state that you are practicing in, then go for it. Another thing to consider is this. I sell through Etsy. Etsy is worldwide. The Universal Life Church is not recognized by everywhere, but yet I'm working with clients from all over. And so even though I'm based in Washington, where technically, legally, I can use the term spiritual counselor because of my ordination, if someone from another state that does not recognize the ULC gets a reading or whatever, and they take umbrage at me using the term counselor, they could potentially file, a report against me, and it would be investigated as to whether or not I could legally use the term counselor. So I just recommend to all my students, do not use the term counselor or counseling in any of your products or marketing or anything like that, because it can have very serious legal consequences. And while I know there are people out there getting away with it, someday they won't. And if you're like me, I would be the one who would get clipped for it, even though I technically can use it. And so I just choose to avoid that potential legal battle. And I recommend to all of my students that they avoid that legal battle as well. Then this man, as if that wasn't enough, right? So I just kind of glossed over it. I didn't say shit. He says this, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. All right, we're going to put that aside and see if we can get anything of value out of this. So we're getting towards the end of the talk. And this man says that next year he's going to start doing a 6-month course. And at the end of the course, you will get a certificate from him that licenses you as a licensed spiritual practitioner. That will be the title. You will be a licensed spiritual practitioner. And this license will give you legal protection in the United States. This random person giving you a piece of paper saying that you are a licensed spiritual practitioner means nothing. It doesn't matter how much time you spend with him in that 6 months. It doesn't matter if he tests you. It doesn't matter anything. That license is absolutely worth nothing, because it's not a real license. Not here in the US anyway. In order for someone to be licensed in anything, generally speaking, you have to take a licensing test within your state. So, massage therapists have to go and get licensed in their state. There are some states where fortune tellers have to have a fortune telling license in order to operate. If you want to work as a social worker, you have to be licensed. If you want to be a counselor, you have to be licensed. And who does all of these licenses? Cosmeticians, beauticians, they have to be licensed as well. And who does the licensing? It is the government. The government is the one who says, this is the test we've established in order for you to prove that you have the skills and knowledge to competently perform this profession. And we, as an official licensing body, have deemed you to meet these requirements, and we offer you this official license, right? This is just some random dude off the internet. He is not a recognized licensing board. He's not part of a recognized licensing board. There is no spiritual practitioner license in the United States. Now, there are certain places where if you do Reiki, for example, you do have to go and get licensed by your state in order to practice Reiki in that state. So there are certain spiritual practices that your state might make you licensed for. If you maybe do like sound healing and you incorporate that into massage therapy, then you would have your massage therapy license, but you wouldn't technically be licensed in the sound therapy. You just happen to use it in conjunction with a licensed profession that you are doing. But this guy cannot license anyone. He does not have the authority to license anyone. That license is not he just prints off of his computer or whatever, or sends you as a PDF. That holds no weight with the government or the judicial system whatsoever. It is just some guy saying you're licensed, and he does not have any authority recognized by the federal or the state governments in order to license you as a spiritual practitioner. There has to be a governing body that says this is or isn't a license in order for you to have legal protection. Anybody can print off a license. I could print off a license saying I'm a licensed spiritual practitioner. I can print off a license saying you're a licensed spiritual practitioner. It doesn't mean anything as far as legalities go, because it's not recognized by the judicial system as a valid license, because there's no accepted licensing board for these services in the United States. But I am so mad about that. I am so mad. Like, it's bad enough that he just mentions in this free talk that you can call yourself a counselor, which you can't. It can lead to very serious legal repercussions. But to know that this person intends to run a 6-month class, and I can only imagine what that 6-month class will run. I can tell you that far shorter classes in this circle of people, like the cheapest class I've seen is like $200 and some, and that's only a couple weeks. Like it's a few lessons, that's it. So 6 months that is both group and some one-on-one. I've got to figure it's going to be $600 plus for this class, and people are going to pay it because they're being told that they're going to get a license at the end of it that will give them legal protection here in the United States. And that simply is, I hate to be mean, I hate to be critical, I hate to put other readers down, but at this point I've just got to call a spade a spade. This is a bold-faced lie. This is a bold-faced lie. And how many people is this person going to rake in thinking that they are going to have this legal protection, and then they may provide services that they are not legally able to provide in the fashion that they want to provide, thinking that they have this legal protection when they don't. It is just a piece of paper. My cat could give you this piece of paper and it would mean just as much as his piece of paper, because it's not a real thing, at least in the eyes of the judicial system here in the United States. Now, if you just want to say, well, it's a piece of paper to show that I took this class and that I learned certain skills. Okay, that's fine. If you feel that you could get valuable skills out of this class and you're not really doing it for the license, then you might get something of benefit out of it. I can't say that you won't, but as far as the license goes, I'm dumbfounded. I don't know how I kept my mouth shut. Well, I do know. I just X'd out of the talk at that point. I left the chat, and vented, and I had to walk away, because my dear God. So the moral of all this, the moral of my rant is, if you are a tarot professional, or you read oracle cards, Lenormand, if you do Reiki, if you do any sort of spiritual work, right? Do your due diligence. Look into the background of whoever it is that you are wanting to get business advice from, tarot teachings from, whatever, anything that you might be paying out for. Make sure that you really look into the person. And also make sure that anything that's touting that it will give you some sort of legal protection or some sort of certification, really look into whether or not the person can offer what they're telling you that they will deliver, legally speaking. Again, the United States has its own, things as a whole, but then each state can have different rules. Your county within a state can have different rules, and your municipality within the county within your state can honestly have different rules about all of the stuff that we're talking about in these business situations here. But I don't want to see anybody else get taken advantage of. I mean, I should have known better and should have done more digging on the initial person from this group that I did wind up paying for products from that I wish I hadn't. I should have done more due diligence on them. Now, fortunately for me, I was getting their smaller packages of some written materials, and so I wasn't out that much money. I was not to the point of paying out the $200 and some for the class, though, to be perfectly honest, if this person had delivered on the digital stuff that I purchased, I might have gone on to take their class. But it was the fact that their products that I paid for were completely worthless to me, completely outdated. And then I found out that they were honestly being shady and misrepresenting their experience and their background and everything. So anybody else that I come across through this group, I find sus. Just from the get-go, I've really learned, but not just with people from this group. Anybody now, if I'm considering working with them, I'm looking into, the validity of their statements. And I just want you guys to be really, really careful about the people you choose to work with, the people that you choose to pay money to help you on your journey, whether that's just learning a divination system, learning a spiritual practice, or getting business advice. And just make sure that, in cases of anything where someone's promising you that you can use certain terms that are supposed to be protected and reserved for only certain professions, and if they're telling you that they can license you, then be cautious, because this stuff can't be licensed. I mean, we can give out certificates as teachers, and I will give, if somebody wants to go through an extensive mentorship with me on learning tarot, where they commit to going through multiple mentor sessions with me and then testing with me at the end, I will give a certificate saying that I certify them as an accurate and ethical tarot reader. But it's just a certificate. It's just saying, yes, I have taught this person, I have tested this person, I believe in their ability to go forth and do good work. But it's nothing legal, it's nothing official. It's just saying, hey, I worked with this person, and they say that I'm good enough. And then, it's up to their potential clients if they feel that I have enough merit as a teacher to then accept that certification. And there is a big difference between a certificate in something and a license in something. You can be certified in whatever all day long. You can have a certificate in whatever all day long. There are certain things that there are legal requirements in order for you to get a certificate in certain things. There are certain types of legal certificates. But as far as like tarot goes, anybody can print you off something that says they certify that you completed the course. Anybody can do that. Licenses, on the other hand, are a very legal thing. You can only get a license in fields that have a licensing board, that have licensing requirements here in the United States. And whoever is giving you a license has to be recognized by the government as having the authority to give you a license. All right. I have ranted way too long, but I just felt like we needed to talk about this. Because I saw way too many people drinking the Kool-Aid in this talk, and it can have very serious legal implications for people. So be aware of this. And I try to be, a positive person. I try to have more positive content, but you guys do seem to enjoy my rants about the tarot industry and world and Etsy and things. And I really just felt that I needed to put this rant out there as sort of a PSA, because it's too important to ignore and gloss over. And honestly, the fact that somebody would do this and with their whole chest tell you that they can give you legal protection, it's unconscionable to me. It really is unconscionable to me. And I mean, the whole group of these instructors that work together are just, I could not trust anyone associated with this group for any reason at this point, just because of the stuff I have seen come out of these people's mouths and everything. So be very careful out there, my friends. You know, I am the kind of person, you know, I can tell you what I've studied. I can tell you what I'm certified in. I can, you know, fill you in on my education background and all of that. And it's up to you if you feel that I have the credentials to meet your needs or not, because there isn't an official board to say, yes, I'm the bee's knees. So do look into whoever you want to work with. Make sure, if nothing else, that their vibe resonates with your vibe. If you're looking for a reader, make sure that their reading style resonates with the type of reading you want, all of that. But be careful of scams, because honestly, that's what this is. I'm sure he doesn't have the price points up yet, but I'm sure this would be a very expensive scam. I'm sure that anyone who takes this course is going to pay a lot of money to have a piece of paper that's not worth anything more than a coloring book page. So be careful out there, my friends. And please forgive me for my rant, but this stuff had to be said. So until I see you again, my lovelies, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps out so much. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you'd like to work with me, you can check out my webpage or my Etsy shop and see what I am offering. My website does have my About page, which lists all of my education, training, certifications, etc., etc., etc. If you'd like to go and check that out. I may even put a specific, in this one, just a link to my About page, for transparency's sake. Since I'm complaining about other people not being transparent, then I need to put my money where my mouth is and be transparent myself. So I'll put that link in the description box as well. But again, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.